Yo, I can hear you. Yo, I can hear you. Yo, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yo, I can hear you. Yo, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you. Yo, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I think it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you.
I think it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
I can hear you.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you did, but that sounds better.
Yeah, it's my
I think
microphone.
it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
Let's see if this makes a difference.
I think it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
Let's see if I can actually hear myself.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you did, but that sounds better.
Yeah, it's my microphone.
I think it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
Let's see if this makes a difference.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second.
There, that sounds better.
Let's see if
I don't know
this
what you
makes a
did, but that sounds
difference.
better.
Yeah, it's my
I
microphone.
think it's just on your end. I don't hear anything.
Let's see if this makes a difference. See if I can actually hear myself.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second. Let's see if this makes a difference. Yeah, it's my microphone.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second.
There, that sounds
Let's
better.
see if
I don't know
this.
what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second. Let's see if this makes a difference. See if I can actually hear myself.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second.
There, that sounds
Let's see if this makes a difference. That might have fixed it.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what
Okay.
you did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second. Let's see if this makes a difference.
There, that sounds better. I don't know what
Okay.
you did, but that sounds better.
That might have fixed it. One second.
There, that sounds
Let's
better.
see if
I don't know
this.
what you
Okay.
did, but that sounds better.
What is happening? Okay. Hold on. Let me just do a quick test. Test 1, 2. This is new audio. Okay. Does this sound weird on my computer? Test 1, 2. What is happening? Okay. Hold on. Let me just do a quick test. Test 1, 2. This is new audio. Okay. Does this sound weird on my computer? Hold on. Let me just do a quick test. Test 1, 2. This is new audio. I think it's fine. Does this sound weird? Test 1, 2. This is new audio. Test 1, 2.
Okay.
Let's go to. Do a quick test. Test 1, 2. This is new audio. I think it's fine. Does this sound weird? Test 1, 2. This is new audio. Test 1, 2.
Okay.
Let's go to this channel real quick. Test 1, 2. Alright, you can still hear me, yeah? I'll have to like edit out the beginning of these videos
I can still hear you.
because it's just it just starts streaming immediately. Let me start the Facebook stream though. So I'll have to clip the beginning out. All right, we are live. Welcome to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for not. And now it's not going to actually show my face with this Hangout thing. It's not going to like automatically switch to my screen. Is there a way to set this so that it switches to whoever's talking? This is so dumb. Hold on a sec. You're seeing behind the curtain here, folks.
And it's ugly.
Although I guess this is all going to be edited out, so. YouTube live show who's speaking. No. Hangout. Camera. All right, well, for this episode, I'm just going to manually flip back and forth. between me and you. And then I'll figure out potentially if there's any way to do it through. I mean, maybe we can just like use Skype instead of Google Hangouts going forward.
Skype, go old school.
Yeah, or I don't, is there like Quark? Can we do it through Quark?
I hope so.
I don't even know what else will we use. I don't know what's out there. Go to meeting. Or
I don't know.
Amazon's.
I mean, I know there's
we could
a
use
bunch
Chime.
of services that. Yep. I know there's a bunch of stuff that streams to all of them at once. I just don't know. I just don't know which ones are out there, which ones actually work.
We are successfully streaming to all 3 platforms, though, so at least we got that done. We just got to figure out going forward how we're going to do this. But anyways, I'll just go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Jerry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's going on, Cody?
Not much. It's just I was making a chicken sandwich with some Wickles. You guys know what Wickles are? It's like spicy pickles. They're absolutely amazing.
You say Wickles?
Wickles, like wicked pickles.
Oh, okay. I guess that kind of makes sense. Are they made by Don Rickles? Is it Don Rickles Wickles?
Yeah, they just come with his face in the box. It's actually pretty amazing.
So we're getting a little bit of a late start here because we're trying to set up the live stream with this new YouTube Live, since they completely did away with Hangouts Live for apparently no reason. But we'll have it up and ready next week for sure. But as we sort of dive in here, let's go ahead and get through the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. Sign up on our Facebook page for the giveaway, and the winner this week is Henry S. from Burkesville, Kentucky, which is a city that I do not know. Burkesville, Kentucky. Are you familiar with Burkesville, Kentucky, Cody?
I am not. It sounds amazing, though. Honestly, it just sounds amazing.
I just looked up Burkesville, Kentucky, and the first result is 2 die in fatal collision near Burkesville. So it does sound amazing. My phone is ringing. We'll just let that go to voicemail. But anyways, Henry, you've got a Country Store hat heading your way along with copies of our ebooks. Anyone who didn't win this week can hop on our Facebook page and answer the question or enter the Country Store giveaway. And while you're on our Facebook page, answer the question of the week, which this past week was, do you have solar panels on your home? And we got a couple yeses, but not many people do, I guess. I guess it's sort of like, it still doesn't necessarily make sense to put solar panels on your home. Not necessarily cost effective.
And I was actually reading about Elon Musk's his solar panel thing, and apparently that thing is going to be kind of revolutionary because it's not like the ones you see now. It's like every shingle is a panel, and there's only like couple hundred houses so far that have them, maybe less. They won't give out exact numbers, but we're talking about bills went from like $400 a month to like $80 a month.
I mean, that's huge.
So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's like kind of like a wait and see if that technology becomes both cost reasonable and technologically reliable. Maybe give it like a couple years and then install some of Musk's solar panels on your home.
Yeah, some musty
roof shingles.
That's right.
The question of the week coming up for next week is, if the Truman Show were real, would you watch it? Because next week's episode is about privacy. I don't even know if that question is still relevant. I don't know if people still remember the Truman Show. They probably do. But basically, like, the premise is that like this guy's entire life is on camera, and you could just watch his entire life unfold. And it was, in the movie, it was the most popular thing in the world, but I'm not sure how popular it would be in reality.
It's interesting because the Truman Show was one of those shows that got better the older it got. I did not like it when it first came out, and now as I go back and watch it, it's because it's a little more relevant these days. I don't know, but it's better now than it was back then.
Yeah, I mean, it seems going back and watching it, it seems pretty prescient in terms of reality TV and the ubiquity of people putting their lives online nowadays and live streaming everything they do. I mean, case in point, this show. But anyways, hop on our Facebook page and answer our question of the week. But we can go ahead and dive in this week. This week's topic, and unfortunately, I want to give a shout out to Paul Johnston, who was supposed to hop on this week, but he is unfortunately out this week. Definitely check out roundaboutlabs.com to see some of Paul's work, and hopefully we can get him on a live stream at some point down the line. But what we're talking about this week is sustainability and sort of the ethics of the sustainability of technology, and sort of reading through stuff and familiarizing myself with, I guess, the ethical issues out there. It seems to me like there's three basic arenas of the sustainability issues for technology, and it seems like there's the people issues, dealing directly with people. There's the hardware issues, if you want to call them that. And then there's also sort of like the economic issues. So maybe we can take those one at a time. To me, the people issues are maybe the least. It's probably the thorniest ethical issue surrounding sustainability, but I think it's the one that the world at large has the least control over, or at least us individually have almost no control over. So there seems to be a major worry about global population and the rise in global population. Estimates have it anywhere from like 9 to 15 billion by 2100, something like that, which seems so far away that I don't even know if it's worth worrying about. But do you think that there's any actual reason for concern about overpopulation and the dwindling resources on this planet, or do you think that's something that is something of a red herring in terms of the sustainability debate?
Well, I don't know how. I don't honestly know how anyone can say that it's not a concern. I mean, it's not. Obviously, you can say maybe it's not a concern in the next 5 years. Maybe it's not a concern in the next like 7 years. But anyway, I don't know how anyone can argue that it's not a concern. I mean, I was reading something that basically the population. It was actually in the context of Endgame and Infinity War. So Thanos wiped out half the population, right? Which really, for Earth, would have set us back to 1974. So 40 years later, and we're right back to where we were. So I mean, with growth like that, I don't know how you can't say that overpopulation is a problem, because it's finite resources, right? Like, I mean, people take up room. You can't plant a tree in someone's home. I mean, like, people take up a lot of room and they consume energy, which doesn't go back. I mean, fossil fuels aren't created, in 20 years even. So I don't know how anyone can say it's not a concern. It's less of a concern to me because I'm selfish and I don't plan on having children. But I don't know how anyone can say it's not a concern.
I saw a really interesting stat that said, and this is actually, I'm not sure exactly how they define humans, but apparently 14% of all humans who have ever lived are alive right now, if that makes sense. Like, the global population right now represents 14% of all people who have ever lived on this planet, which just shows how crazy the population explosion has been in the past 50, 60 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-numbing. And again, that is just insane. And I know the numbers are slowing down, meaning like there are fewer and fewer people. The population growth rate is going down significantly. But I mean, unless it just goes negative, I just don't know how. I don't know how you're gonna ever get to a point where we're sustainable without major changes.
Well, do you think, and this is sort of the theme of the Text Ethics series in my mind, is do you think technological solutions will come around to solve these largely technologically created problems. If we sort of broadly define technology as, uh, increased nutrition, improvements in healthcare, stuff that makes it so that the global population has absolutely exploded in the past half century. Do you think technology can fix that?
So so basically what you're saying is, will there be a technological solution? Like, will technology invent a way to like replenish fossil fuels like crazy, or suck CO2 or carbon emissions out of the environment?
That's exactly right.
Something like
And
that.
so
I
like
mean,
consider like or how do you feed a global population of 15 billion? And that might be a question in our minds based on the technology that we have today, but maybe science comes up with some crazy nutritional product that's easy to manufacture, provides the vitamins, minerals, macronutrients that you need to survive, can distribute it at large scale to feed a population of 15 million. It reminds me of like there's that great movie Snowpiercer, although a lot of people hate it, but it's about like a train that's perpetually moving around the planet, and the end of the train is fed on like the cockroaches that live on the train turned into like little black sludge bars that feed them. Like if we come up with a way to produce like black sludge bars to feed to 14 billion of the 15 billion population, and it and insert technological or insert like a global problem here, and technology finds a solution. Like, do you think that's reasonable, or do you think that's a pipe dream?
I mean, so I think it's reasonable. I think it's somewhere between reasonable and a pipe dream. Because the problem is like, I mean, it's such at the whim of the administrations, and right now we have an administration who doesn't want to fund anything like that, and it would kind of be like, I mean, we're spending billions of dollars to find a cure for cancer. We've been doing that for a long time. I think we will. I absolutely think we will. However, it would be like if we're like, okay, let's wait until cancer is an extinction level threat, and then let's find a cure for the disease, kind of thing. Like, I don't know if we put it off too long, if we're going to be able to find a solution in time. I'm sure we could find a solution given enough time and enough resources. I just don't know where we're going to be given that.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. It's kind of like a increasingly pressing issue. Although, like you said, it's the population explosion is sort of located in certain regions of the world. I mean, if you look at like Western countries and countries like Japan, they actually have like negative population growth. So, I mean, there are whole issues to deal with there in terms of like I think whenever you talk about population control, it becomes something of a non-starter because I don't think people like to
Glorious.
hear. Yeah, I think people like to hear population control. Um, it's interesting. I mean, there are also issues, and sort of maybe as like a lead into the material issue of technological sustainability. The more people you have on the planet, the more resources you consume, the more waste is produced, and the more resources you need to produce the technology that sort of allows a global population to uh, interconnect in the ways that we currently do. So if you look at that, I was looking at some studies about like the amount of materials that go into creating just like mobile devices, or even like the electricity that is used to power something, say innocuous like Bitcoin. Like I think that I read that the electricity consumed by Bitcoin mining is equivalent to all of the electricity consumed by the country of Ireland, which maybe like the Irish don't consume that much electricity because they're all just like blackout drunk in pubs. They don't really turn the lights on that much.
Which and it's interesting because like you're touching on another issue about cryptocurrency, which is like why it's already doing that. It's already consuming as much energy as the entire island of Ireland, and like the it's only used as trading. It's an asset right now. It's not a currency. Imagine how much energy you would use if we began using that as a currency. Like you began buying your milk with cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. You began, getting food out of a vending machine with Bitcoin. That energy consumption would explode. It would just increase exponentially. And the other thing you said, which is interesting about population control, is obviously that's a radical solution. But it's interesting because the people who are really stumping on the sustainability and we need solutions and Green New Deals and all this stuff, they're the ones who are saying we need radical solutions because this is a radical problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to actually bring up population control, it'd be a non-starter, which is interesting because the fact of the matter is, if we keep now again, birth rates are coming back a little bit, but if we look at, we have a problem of competing liberties, right? Like people have the freedom to procreate, but it's encroaching on other people's freedom to survive. If it's to believe like this group is saying that the problem is as serious as they say it is. So it kind of creates an issue where, yeah, you're right. You can never bring up population control, but we're getting to a point, at least if you take their argument, that population control may be necessary in order to give us the time we need to come up with technological solutions.
I think probably the only realistic way to approach population control is in a roundabout fashion, and probably in like it makes the most sense to approach it from a standpoint of empowering or increasing female autonomy, because I think a lot of the issues in a lot of the countries that have these insanely high birth rates is that women are sort of forced into having an absurd number of children. So maybe if you position it that way, you could, in a roundabout fashion, come to some sort of population control in these countries where women have, 10, 15, 20 children, which, was the norm, not just a couple hundred years ago in Western society too. But, I mean, that might be one way to sort of talk about population control without actually talking about population control.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough from the material side too, because a lot of these, and especially a lot of folks in the tech industry, who might have, I would say, like somewhat lean to the left, and are for things like workers' rights, and at least nominally in favor of things like workers' rights and unions and labor and stuff like that, depend on devices that are increasingly relying on ever riskier materials to produce. Like the gold that's easy to reach ran out 100 years ago. So you have stuff like, I think a couple months ago there was a huge mine collapse in Indonesia that killed a couple hundred people, or maybe like 100 people. All these precious metals that go into producing, everything from like iPhones to printers, it's becoming more and more dangerous to actually get the materials to create these devices, and it's only ever going to become more dangerous and more environmentally destructive to get these materials. So it seems like we're at sort of this crossroads here where folks who care about sustainability, environmental issues, are insanely device dependent and are adding to the problem by being so tech addicted. So is there like, I guess what I'm getting at is that a potential avenue to promote sustainability efforts, making people more aware of how environmentally destructive technology can be?
Yes, it is. It is. The problem is people don't believe anything except for what their brother posts on Facebook, man. Like, I mean, no one actually believes that there's like a problem to begin. I mean, like some people do, but the people who don't believe there's a problem, you can't convince there's a problem. So I don't know how you're going to convince them that technology is a problem.
Yeah.
When the argument from people like this is like, well, the water level at the boat ramp down the road is the same what's been, and I've lived here for 35 years. Like, when that is the counter argument to like we're in trouble with the environment, you just kind of have to throw your hands up in the air and say, well, we cannot educate certain people about the dangers of technology, population growth, and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean waste is a huge issue. I think it was like 22. Let me get the number exactly. No, I don't have it handy. It was something like 22 metric tons of e-waste. It's called is produced every year, um, which is an absurd amount. It's just people dumping old devices, and like this maybe leads into the economic side of it, but it's cheaper. I think printer ink is like $8,000 a gallon, something like that. So it's cheaper to buy a new printer than it is to buy ink cartridge replacements for your printer in a lot of cases. And what do people do with their old printer? They just chuck it in the dumpster. So you have this massive amount of electronic waste that's being created, and a lot of the waste is because it uses so many, rare earth metals and um, not hazardous materials, but materials that sort of leach toxins into water supplies in the air when they're destroyed in improper ways. Let's say, um, it seems like uh, it's a conundrum because you need a constant supply of new technology, and this sort of leads into the economic side of it. There's a reason that Apple isn't supporting the iPhone 5 anymore. It's because they need to sell new phones to increase the bottom line, to show revenue
Right.
growth year over year. So it almost seems like there is a race against the clock in terms of the resources available on the planet versus the need of these companies to constantly grow and constantly expand the bottom line. So I mean, this is a big issue, and we only have about 5-10 minutes here. Is there any reasonable way that you see to deal with that conflict of interest between, not even a conflict of interest, it's like the reality of there's only so many materials on Earth to be used for these devices, but there are so many companies that need to constantly produce new devices. Is there any solution there that you can think of?
I mean, not one that not one that makes sense. I mean, the thing is, we talked about like what ends the world quicker than the environment, and that's a stale economy. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if the wheel stops spinning for the economy, then everything comes crashing down a lot faster, even than the environment problem we have. So it's just we've kind of created a petri dish, and it's like a great machine, but every machine kind of has like an end of life, and like where the solutions that are necessary almost might hasten the kind of end of the machine kind of thing.
It's
It's
weird.
weird.
Yeah, it's almost like planned obsolescence, which is like one of the major problems that we're dealing with today. Is actually an inherent part both of the products that the economic system produces and the economic system itself. Like the economic system itself will burn itself out after X number of years when you can't produce enough new goods to to keep the spice flowing, to quote from Dune. Like the spice must flow. Like you have to constantly, like there's reasons that they tear down stadiums. Like the Kingdome in Seattle was, I think, 23 years old and they tore it down. Like there's a reason that stadiums only last a couple decades. It's because you have to tear it down, build a new one, and create new opportunities for people to like have a job and make money. So we just roll with it, and I guess until it burns out, it seems to be the only realistic solution.
And it's weird because I wonder if people that are much more intelligent, much more, not maybe intelligent, but much more in the know than us, much more informed than us,
Probably
that have the
intelligent.
inside information. I wonder if they know that. I wonder if they realize like, yeah, we're pretty much screwed here. So let's just hope that it's later rather than sooner kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess write it out until it crashes. I wonder if that's what they hope. It'd be funny. It'd be interesting to be a fly on the wall for some of those discussions. Um, it's tough
Yeah,
though.
yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's interesting because the radical the solutions to this, the Green New Deal and stuff, that would pump so much money back into the economy, which would lead to more population and more technology, and kind of just, I mean, again, even if it was a radical overhaul, even if we got rid of cows, planes, got rid of everything and went 100% sustainable, we're not getting rid of the people, right? And as a matter of fact, in those situations, we'd be creating more people. So it's just, it's a problem that I'm glad I don't have to solve, and it's a problem that I'm glad I'm not going to have to leave my kids. It's a problem without definitely without an easy answer, and maybe not with an answer at all.
I mean, it definitely seems like an insurmountable problem, and it definitely seems like you're saying it's like a dog chasing its tail. Like you constantly, like, you need more consumers. You need to sell more goods. The more goods you sell, the more quickly stuff runs out. The more expensive stuff gets, so the less people can buy. I mean, it's like it seems like a constant balancing act, and I guess that's what the invisible hand of the market's for, to some extent. But at some point, it seems like the music's going to stop, and they're short of something maybe even radical as like a universal basic income, where you just give people money to spend to keep the system rolling. I mean, maybe there's really no realistic way to put it off for forever. It seems like on a finite planet with finite resources, there isn't, right?
There isn't. I mean, there really is not. At some point, we can delay it, but it's a finite resource. Even again, as we open up the conversation, even if we're just talking about like space, physical space, like we can start building up to the clouds, but even that's going to run out at some point. Like we are going to run out of resources no matter what we do.
So I guess enjoy it while it lasts. And it's like Bush said after 9/11 was like, we can't stop shopping. I don't think he's like, everyone was ragging on him for that, but he was probably exactly right. Like, you can't even have the economic system slow down for a couple weeks. I mean, we saw what happened in 2008 when people stopped spending money for a little bit, and it was like after a month, it was like people were worried about the entire world economy collapsing. So it seems a very tenuous system, with not too many reasonably good solutions. But I guess, as a final question, if it's a debate between sustainability and sort of reining in, like, there's huge minimalism pushes nowadays, people buying less stuff, people wanting to share stuff, people buying used stuff, especially among younger generations, which probably because they have no money. But there's a big push to spend less and have less stuff. And a part of that is the sustainability side of it. So between the two, between the say the environment and the health of our planet, this little blue ball that we have to take care of and we're sort of stewards of, and the global economic system and its health, and avoiding something like a massive global collapse that leaves hundreds of millions of people destitute, which side would you fall on? Which side would you of that divide would you think is the least bad option?
Well, it's always going to come down with humanity. It's always going to come down to which one provides the most immediate pain. And an economic collapse provides way more immediate pain than a slowly deteriorating environment. At some point, it won't. But again, that's what I keep saying. At that point, I think it'll be too late. But people are like, oh yeah, I can't afford that car now. Like, they're not like, okay, in 10 years, like, my home is going to be underwater. Like, they deal with the problem that is most closely at hand, and that's always going to be an economic problem. Always.
I guess that's probably reasonable. I mean, that's to a large extent, that's the human experience, is that we're somewhat worried about the next 5 to 10 years and much less worried about the next 40 to 50 years, which is reasonable because God only knows what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. It's much harder to predict 40 to 50 years. It's definitely something interesting to think about. Definitely something interesting to talk about. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode, where we're going to be talking about privacy. Hopefully, JT Wolahan, who was on a previous episode, is going to try and hop on, so hopefully he'll be there with us. Make sure to hop on our Facebook page to enter the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. And speaking of the privacy episode, hop on our Facebook page and answer our question of the week, which is, if the Truman Show were real, would you watch it? I think if Jim Carrey was in it, I would watch it, especially like current day crazy Jim Carrey. But definitely hop on our Facebook page and answer that question of the week. Check out the podcast for this episode on iTunes. The blog post will be available at gunnertech.com. Our ebooks are available on Amazon, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry, that's Cody. We'll see you next week.